Alright, this video is going to be about the new black pearl oyster that's available. This is a newer strain. It is definitely a commercial strain, as you can see. Here is a block that I just harvested. Got 3 pounds, almost 3 pounds on the dot, off of a 10-pound block. They're actually like 10.8-pound blocks. And I even ran the room a little bit dry. I forgot to turn the humidifier on for about 20 hours. But they did okay. So this is a strain that's kind of like King Oyster in the flavor and texture. The stem is kind of, there's no strings to it, there's no grain to it like there is on like blue oysters or elm oysters. So you can do things like slice them into slivers and make scallops or you know, vegetarian, vegan scallops. Or you can get a nice fat one. Sometimes the stems will grow really, really big. This is small. Sometimes they get 2-3 inches around, and you can slice them down the middle, make like a burger or a steak out of them. Again, they're an oyster, so they're very versatile with the cuisine. They can kind of fit into whatever kind of menu you have, or any kind of eating that you have that you want to prep. So for fruiting these, some people have issues with these because they really need lower 60s. They don't need anything below that. These grew around 63. But if they don't get, say, below 65, 64, they're not going to really pin. Also, they take a little bit longer in incubation. They take about 3 to 4 weeks in incubation. And then in fruiting, they take about 10 days from being put into fruiting to harvest. And that's first flush. And then second flush would be another week and a half later. We started doing top fruiting on these, as you can see. So this is side fruiting. Right? These are elm A, it's an elm oyster, and what we do is side fruit. So we cut the bag and they fruit on sides. With the black pearls, we realized that they would do a lot of this where they pin underneath the bag and keep pushing out. Now these elms will abort and this will keep growing. These wouldn't do that. These would just keep growing and growing. So what we did on this batch was we cut the bag to around here, and then what I ended up doing was yesterday I ended up cutting the sides and folding them down, because what was happening was, you could see it here kind of, it was pushing the sides in. So I think next time when we're side fruiting, we're going to keep the curtains up for the first day or two. We'll pre-slit them like this, where there's a slit on the front and a slit on the back, and then you can roll them down around day 5 to let the fruits really pan out more and you don't get them all squished like that. But yeah, the top fruiting, it avoids all this pinning in the bag that you see over here. It doesn't pin in the bag as much if you top fruit it, because if there are pins that form, they just force their way up the top. The yield, while that one is 3 pounds, that block was 3 pounds, the yield that I've gotten is around anywhere from 2 to 3 pounds per block. So they yield pretty well, and as you can see, the harvest is very consistent. So like, say these elms, for example, they don't always necessarily flush at the same time. You can see these are all flushing together. These are like a day or two behind. These were all within the same day. I harvested half of them yesterday. I probably should have harvested more because some of them are overripe, you could see. But what I'm getting at is that they all flush and harvest at the same time, which is really what you want when you're looking for a commercial strain. You want to be able to put a block in and say, in day 9 and 10, I'm going to have X amount of mushrooms. It really helps you calculate your delivery days and your farmer's market days and stuff like that. So this strain is available. I have it on my website. It's part of the Big 4-pack of the liquid cultures. So you can check it out there, along with some other oyster mushroom, and it's like chestnut and lion's mane. So yeah, these are very high performing commercial mushrooms, as you can see. One issue we're having with the shelving, which is apparent here, is we need to make some bigger spaced shelving. So we were discussing, me and Ryan, who's the farm manager here, we were discussing using, instead of using these 18-inch racks, we're going to use 24-inch racks and go 3 wide. And instead of doing 6 tiers, we're just going to do 4 tiers. So it'll effectively be the same amount of blocks. If you see my incubation racks, that's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be the same amount of blocks, but on less shelves with more headroom. So harvesting will be a little bit easier. One thing that I don't like about top fruiting is the harvest is a little bit dirtier. You can see that, not dirtier, but there's a little bit more work. You can see how much substrate pulls away, whereas when you're side fruiting, not as much pulls away because it keeps it all to one little slit, and usually it'll break to where there's not a whole lot of substrate breaking loose. When you top fruit, it really tends to chunk away big, huge chunks of the substrate along with the mushrooms, and then you're left peeling that off. And I just throw it in this bin, and then we compost it from there. But yeah, so that's one downside, that I'm not a huge fan of top fruiting. But in this particular case, with these Black Kings, if we don't do that, we were getting full-size mushrooms in the tops of the bags where there was the plenum space. So yeah, hope you like this video. I'll probably do more videos like this going over the details of certain strains. Hopefully this video will help anybody who has this strain, who has Black Pearl, and they're trying to fruit it and having any issues. Quick note, another thing that I noticed was some people were having the bumps on top of their caps. If you have bumps on top of the caps, like they're like little white knobs kind of, usually that's because your fruiting room is a little bit too wet. I might have, say like these, I don't know if you can see that, there's like this little bump right here, stuff like that. But if it's all over the top, usually that's you're not dry cycling long enough. And I kind of go over that in my previous video about my timer cycle. So you gotta bump it back a little bit. You gotta make it to where the room lets it dry out a little bit longer, and it won't wet it as much either. So yeah, make sure you give this movie a video a thumbs up. Follow me on Patreon if you want to support me. Patreon.com/Myers Mushrooms. Shop Myers Mushrooms for all your growing supplies, and keep on mushrooming. Have a good one.